As technology's evolved over the past 30 years since mobile networks have been around, people's use of data is just absolutely transformed today, where we're streaming high definition 4K video on a mobile device, and it just works. So we invest a lot every year to keep up with that changing technology and changing demand.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.
Greetings and welcome along to the New Zealand Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Spain, and this episode we have Kieran Byrne, who's the Chief Technology Officer at 1NZ. Welcome along, Kieran.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you in the studio, and especially because it's your first time on a podcast.
First time on a podcast, so make sure you're nice.
So very privileged. Look, great to have you here.
Thank you.
Maybe you can fill listeners in with sort of a short kind of overview of what you do, what your role sort of consists of with 1NZ.
So Chief Technology Officer, so responsible for our network assets, all our IT infrastructure, cybersecurity, and our wholesale business as well. So quite a varied portfolio. Been in the role for about 9 months now.
Fantastic. Yeah, great to see you in the role. We've enjoyed chatting to Tony Baird in years gone by as well. So great to have you here. Now, before we start, big thank you, of course, to our show partners, which includes 1NZ, also 2 Degrees, Spark, HP Workday, and Gorilla Technology. So we really appreciate that support that keeps us going each week. Now, this week, really keen to kind of delve in and understand a bit of what's going on behind the scenes at 1NZ. We see glimpses and bits and pieces and varying things that kind of come through in the news, but of course you've got a much deeper view on these things, so looking forward to delving into that. But also tapping in on a little bit of the most current news. And the thing that I guess really stood out to me over the last week, and there are a lot of things going on, to be fair, but is this increasing role of AI and autonomy, and particularly when it comes to vehicles. So two quite big events, I think, for the world of autonomous and driverless vehicles. First up, we had I guess earlier on last week was Tesla kicking off their sort of robo taxi service in a very, very limited kind of demo form, but some friendly influencers that were able to use their kind of rideshare app and
cheap $4.20 price point.
And their $4.20 price point. What do you think that's about, Kieran?
No idea.
Old Musk, eh? He's consistent anyway. Any excuse for something with 420 in it, and he's there. So it is kind of comical the way these things are kind of carried through, because he's I guess with what he does with SpaceX and other things, you think of it as being a pretty serious business and people's lives at stake, and then he's kind of doing these cannabis jokes. But anyway, there we go. What did you think of sort of seeing some of the videos and that news of the service being turned on? Because he had made this commitment that he was going to launch the service, and I know you've tried out Waymo in San Francisco recently. I tried it out last year, and also tried out the Tesla FSD, or full self-drive technology there last year, where it's really an iteration of that technology, which is what they're turning on in the vehicles. And I wasn't quite sure if they were going to make their deadline of turning things on last week, but they have done.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing tech, really. Sort of, as you mentioned, recently drove in a Waymo. Very different technology. It uses radar sensing and LiDAR and all sorts of positioning around it, whereas obviously with Elon's robo-taxi, it's camera-based. It's meant to replicate human eyes and human vision, and obviously meant to mean that it can be scaled anywhere across the world immediately. So he's obviously got a strong vision that he's going to go huge on this. The amount of robo-taxis they're talking about churning out of those factories in the next couple of years is pretty ambitious, as well as the Optimus robots. I don't know what's going on there, but we're going to see marching out of these factories robo taxis and humanoid robots, which is going to be an interesting change to the world. But no, fascinating technology and just a huge leap. And obviously, as you know, it's AI everything at the moment in the tech space, and it's just another milestone for the industry. And it's interesting. The other day, I actually bought a new car, and I was probably thinking it's probably the last car that I'll actually be driving in the future, and maybe even my kids, who are 7-year-old twin boys at the moment, probably may even never learn to drive a car the way we're heading. So it's really fascinating.
That is interesting, and we've talked about that over a number of years. And my son, he'll be 15 this year, and if we were going back 7 or 8 years, we were having that exact discussion. But now it's actually, hold on, we're so much closer, because there are levels of this happening, in the US. In China especially, I guess those are the two places where there's any sort of scale. Now the scale is still pretty small. I think Waymo up to about 1,500 vehicles. I think the biggest, autonomous, cabs, ride-sharing service in China is probably smaller than that. So they haven't really scaled out, incredibly far. But if anyone can get scale, then Tesla have that capability, just because they've got a fleet of vehicles where I imagine some people will be happy to put their vehicles onto serve if that were needed. But the fact that they can churn out these vehicles at I think a fraction of the cost of what it is for Waymo, and because their technology is designed in such a way that, in theory, it doesn't need to be ring fenced. Now, at the moment, it very much is in Texas there. So I think, they've got a particular area of Austin that you are limited to, and no doubt that brings some benefits for them as they're working to improve the technology and the consistency.
But I mean, Elon Musk is all about scalability and going big, right? And with the amount of Teslas out there now, and they're all delivering data back to them, which is helping them optimize their autonomous play, and that's just going to scale and get better over time. And the risk is obviously, with the approach that they're taking with the camera-based, is they'll have more incidents and accidents and more regulatory scrutiny and barriers to scaling. But they're obviously trying to push through that and making this a mass adoption of this around the globe in incredible speed. It would be, I would imagine, the conversations that are being had in the background there.
I am curious, because we had General Motors, GM, their service Cruise, and they've got kind of their autonomous ride sharing service that started. That stopped. That got put on hold after an accident, and doesn't seem to have sort of fired up again. And there've already been comments around, well, Tesla's being investigated because the vehicles weren't working maybe as well as what authorities might expect. But we certainly haven't heard anything formal to say that they've been taken off the road. I think the last video I saw of somebody sharing was maybe, I don't know, 24 to 48 hours, old. So, maybe 72, but reasonably recent. So it's not clear whether they've paused their services or not. They certainly haven't made any announcement down that track. But I guess after testing the technology last year, I could see there were definitely some shortcomings. But the technology's been improving quite quickly. So one video I heard somebody say they had probably done about 15,000 kilometres or miles. Maybe I already put it into kilometres in my head. Not sure, but certainly north of 10,000, maybe 15,000 kilometres, and they'd had a very good experience. In fact, my impression was their comment was saying that they hadn't had to engage and take over in that period of time, which was very different to what I experienced with Tesla FSD last year in San Francisco, where I saw it try to go the wrong way down a one-way street, tried to go through what was effectively a red light for the direction I was wanting to head, and it disengaging when certain circumstances where there were contrast problems because the vehicle was going from a bright day under a small bridge, and it would disengage at that point. So
I wonder how much of that's driven by familiarity. If you're driving 15,000 kilometres and you're doing the same route every day, and it's learnt from that, and there's no barriers to doing that well, then it's very easy. But
it could be.
But if you're, they're going for this play, which is very different from Waymo, which is geographically mapped and radared areas, ring fenced in here. It knows exactly where it's going. It's very precise on its positioning on the road and its response to lights. And if it's bad weather, it can still operate. And so it's quite a different strategy. And with the Elon strategy, you're going to have to accept that there will be issues as it improves over time. Whereas the Waymos are much more low risk. There's been far less, I think recently anyway, issues with Waymos. So.
Yeah, their data around disengagement seems to be a lot lower. Although you still see videos of people where a vehicle's it's kind of frozen partway through an intersection. I think I saw one of those in the last couple of days. There was another one where the way it was kind of trying to cut through traffic looked like it had, no idea of how it should be driving as a good member of society.
I saw one where it was holding up traffic because there was a fire engine across its lane on the road, and and it needed to go round it, but it didn't want to do that because it didn't want to cross the lane, and there was a car sitting on the other side, and so it was just traffic was backing up behind it. And there's things like that, which are sort of fringe situations, and they'll get better over time, I'm sure. But
whereas the Tesla technology just seems to go with it, right? It doesn't actually seem so bothered around, the rules, and it's more like a human in terms of a willingness to maybe sort of push the limits a little bit. And that there was one of the live streams that's videos that somebody shared from last week in the robo taxi, which a Tesla Model Y is not the robo taxi that they kind of demonstrated a few months ago, but it was coming up to turn across an intersection, and then it appeared to kind of change its mind, and then it kept going. But because of the way that was a left turning lane, which basically if you were to go straight from that lane, you'd end up in the oncoming traffic, because that was then a left turning lane from that side, and the Tesla just drove across and was therefore on the wrong side of the road for a period until it re-entered the next turning bay, which you definitely see there's a big contrast between those two approaches.
And I just always go back to this technology's very, very new, and we tend to focus on the mistakes that it makes and things like that. But you've got to project forward to 5 or 10 years time. You strongly believe this stuff has been resolved, and we're highly reliant on these autonomous vehicles, which work in a very safe and accurate way. So we've got to get over this initial period. But I hope we just don't push so far that it gets the allergic reaction.
Look, I think these these things will get a lot better, and it's really how quickly does it happen? Who are the companies that are going to lead? Having a discussion with someone who's a big Tesla fan and investor last week, and I'd exited Tesla earlier on in the year, and been watching what Wave AI are doing out of the UK, and they've talked about having trialled their technology for autonomous vehicles in 90 cities across 7 countries. Now, Tesla haven't shared how many countries exactly that they've tried their technology in, but we know that they have tried in New Zealand, because they employed some people that were testing out the technology.
They'll be doing it everywhere.
Going back, some time. They've shared a video doing it in Australia. So they should be able to operate in a lot of places. But how that actually sort of scales, we will see in time. Now, an interesting sort of tie-in from the way this type of technology works, where we're talking about making AI the driver of a vehicle. When it comes to running networks and technology systems these days, there's more and more of a move to kind of hand over some of that workload to AI. So how does that look like for you? whether it's sort of now or looking forward in terms of, how much can your networks be run, autonomously by AI and I guess your usage, the amount of data, all of the things that are going on your networks, continues to scale and evolve, and cyber challenges and the like. So no doubt it's pretty helpful to be able to lean in on these technologies.
Yeah, as you can imagine, now autonomous networks is a phrase which you hear a lot when you're talking to anyone in the industry or any of the vendors, and it's getting quite real now. We've got industry frameworks now which talk about levels of autonomy. You can get to a network from 1 to 5, where 5 is a completely self-optimizing, self-healing, self-running network, and that's still a bit in the future. But
so do these kind of line up with what we see for autonomous vehicles as well? Because I think that's a scale up to 5 as well. Are there sort of a lot of similarities?
Well, there's a lot of similarities in the sense that you're moving from something which is heavily manual, human-based, driving a car, through to a point where it's completely hands off the wheel, and the thing is running on itself. It's making its own decisions. It's self-optimizing. It's making changes in real time, and so quite a lot of analogies in there. There's a path to get there from where we are now, obviously. The thing that's happening in parallel is networks are actually getting more complicated. Like the network functions built into our core network, there's more and more of them that we need to patch and maintain and upgrade. And we'd have to scale the workforce substantially just to keep up with the pace of the technology we're deploying. So AI is actually really critical to us just to even keep our employee base constant, let alone take people out. So, so it's a really interesting transition that we're going through. We've already started a number of AI-based use cases in the network, self-optimizing, whether it's self-optimization in the radio network, energy efficiency, powering down sites when there's no load on them. We've also deployed an AI agent that can report on an individual's customer experience on the network. So it can look through a whole lot of network data, and if a customer calls us up and says, look, I'm really unhappy with your network, I'm getting all these problems, can actually tell them, we had a cell site out during that time, or there was an issue, there was some congestion, we're working on it in this way, and make these changes. So it's quite an exciting time, and I think it'll be a 3 to 4 year journey to get to some sort of higher level of autonomy, maybe up to the level 4 in this scale, where there are humans in the loop, but a lot of the network functions will be happening on a much more automated basis. But it's a really, really interesting time to be in the industry.
And how important will it be to have, I guess, expert engineers that know, every area of the technology? I would say look back over time at some of the technologies I've been involved in, and if you go back sort of 10, 20, the further you go back, the less deep your knowledge is on those older systems. But sometimes you actually need to keep some of the older technologies and bits and pieces in operation to some degree or another. But of course, in theory, AI can pick up and learn those things. So do you see challenges in terms of the depth of expertise you need to keep in different areas, and how much you'll lean into AI on?
We certainly have that challenge at the moment, because we have equipment in our network in certain areas which might be 20, 30 years old, and there's 1 or 2 people who understand how it works. Like, I could walk into any one of our data centres and there would not be one person in the organisation who could go through and say what everything is and how it works. It's a collection of different domains in different areas, and we're on a modernisation journey that every telco's on at the moment, and a lot of consolidation of old infrastructure. Our organisation has been built from the acquisition of a number of different entities over time, Telstra Clear and iHug and various other entities. And we're in the process of just decommissioning a whole lot of old stuff at the moment, copper networks going, and really getting to a state where we have sort of modern, containerised architecture that's scalable, it's upgradable, patchable, all these sort of things that we need to be able to sort of run this new, modern, fast-paced network environment. So, it's pretty exciting, and a lot of investment going in over the next few years to sort of get us ready for this wave of AI.
Can you talk a little bit to the challenges? Because I guess different listeners will come from different environments, and in smaller organisations, it's often reasonably easy to to modernise the technology systems that an organisation uses, because they might not have a whole lot, and particularly if they're particularly new, fresh organisations, they start with what's modern and so on anyway. But anytime I talk to someone who's kind of got depth in a large organisation, you realise that there are so many complexities and bits and pieces that in some cases have been around for a really long time. We probably sometimes these things get exposed if there's, say, a cyber incident, or there's acquisitions and so on, and you hear about the different technologies coming together, like you've talked about. I mean, how complex and hard is it to kind of modernise and get things onto kind of that ideal technology platform that you'd love to be on?
Well, it's not just about tech. It actually starts with the customer. It starts with product in the organisation. We've sold a whole lot of things over the year, and we've got products out there which need to be served by certain technology, and so we actually have to move the customers off that, simplify our product offerings, retire legacy plans, products, in order to remove that equipment. And you'll find you'll have a major enterprise customer who has a whole lot of the modern products, but has a few of the old ones. And so do you migrate them onto new things? Do you let those products continue? And we're going through that journey at the moment. Everything we need to do from a tech transformation perspective starts with, how do we get customers onto a simpler set of modern products so we can decommission all the old technology that's currently supporting them. And it's not easy, because you don't just want to turn up to a customer and go, hey, we're switching you off. And you want to do right by the customer and transition them. So it requires to work with those customers, making calls to them, designing new products, moving them across, transitioning them. It might involve price point changes, various things like that. And we're going through this. We're putting a lot of effort into this product simplification. We've decommissioned so many legacy products over the past 12 months. We've moved a lot of price points. Our customers will well know there's discounts have been removed and various things, and that's not about trying to upset our customers. It's actually about trying to simplify our business so we can actually deliver better ultimately for customers going forward. And that unfortunately involves migrating customers onto new stuff, which sometimes causes friction, but it's a really, really important thing to simplify the business. And once you've simplified the business and you've got all the customers on those simple products, then you can really start to decommission that tech and get the benefits out of that modernisation.
And so what are some of the pieces that you'd be decommissioning? Because you mentioned iHug acquisition and Telstra Clear, and those are different systems to what you're trying to generally run today, right? Yeah.
So copper's a big one. Yeah. So it's quite interesting if you look in and you walk into one of our data centres. A lot of the footprint is old copper switching systems, and they're huge. There's racks and racks of the stuff, and there's a few little LEDs and lights on all over the place. Years ago it was all lit up, but it's gradually winding down, and so there's a real focus on that. You get benefits of being able to switch these things off. You get power efficiency savings. Obviously the reliability of copper-based products versus fibre-based products or wireless products is a completely different ballgame, and so we're a lot of the decommissioning at the moment is focused on that. And then on top of that is sort of the back book of, I guess, modern products that are built on the modern technology but have proliferated as we haven't necessarily managed product life cycles very well. And so it's this mass sort of decommissioning at the moment. We want to get to a point where all our customers are on a simple set of plans across mobile, across broadband, business and enterprise, all the same. And then we're in a good spot where we can just start flicking switches and turning stuff off.
I remember we had multiple services, and we were getting a different bill for mobile than what we were for, I guess, what would have been a Telstra Clear, service, and they were in different systems, so there probably was no other way to do that.
And billing's really hard as well, as you can imagine, when you've got multiple billing stacks, because it's really hard to sort of converge that into a single thing for the customer. And you'll see sometimes on a 1NZ invoice it says, if you're this type of customer, use this bank account. If you're this type of customer, use this. And there's there's different bank accounts for different billing stacks, and we just need to get rid of that complexity.
Yeah,
and we're making really good progress towards that.
Yeah. Oh well, I'm glad you've taken it on, Kieran. It's
a lot to
good
do.
stuff. Yeah. And talking about that role of AI, and you were talking about being able to use the technology to I guess help you bring together a range of information. So if someone is calling up and is not super happy, that you can then be drawing together a whole lot of data and rating what their experience maybe is like. What are the other uses that you're finding for AI in terms of helping you lift your customer service, which is I think it's probably a challenge in every field these days, right? There was once upon a time I look back, I was an early customer on New Zealand's mobile networks, and I remember being able to call up and you get somebody instantly, and they'd give you as much time as you wanted, and so on. But these days when we've got literally millions of connections, probably more than what the population is in New Zealand, right? That's a pretty serious thing to be able to provide great customer service to that sort of basic clients.
So we've set in a pretty ambitious goals around AI. You'll hear Jason talk about wanting to be the most AI-enabled telco in the world, and really that's just about we just see the opportunity with this. Like AI is not going away. You can be as skeptical as you like, but this is a trend that I'm adamant is going to absolutely transform the world, and we want to get on the front foot of that. The traditional, if you go and talk to any consultants about AI deployment, they'll talk about call centres will be the primary one, and that's the big use case. We've actually been using AI in our call centres for quite a long time. Whether it's chatbots, whether it's using large language models to synthesise call transcripts to understand root cause of drivers of calls. We've managed to decrease 1 million calls from our call centre over the past few years based on the stuff that we've been doing. So we've made a lot of progress there. It's actually probably other areas of the business that we've actually sort of accelerated in this latest version of the program. And some examples of that, our marketing teams are now using writer.com and various tools to do marketing copywriting, and had a huge amount of benefits. We're talking 7 figures now of benefits associated annual with the work that they're doing there. I've talked about what we're doing in the network. We're really trying for autonomy, so taking human decision-making out of the loop and running the network in an automated way. We've reduced several million of annual power consumption based on smarter ways of running the radio network, turning down frequencies when customers aren't on to certain windows of the time, understanding the load and then adjusting the site towards that in an automated way. And now we're experimenting with what's called self-optimizing radio networks, so actually changing parameters in the network to optimize customer experience in real time and things like that. Other areas where there's a huge amount of value is like the software development lifecycle. Yep. So we're going through our big, IT modernisation program at the moment. So spending a lot of money on that, and using AI as a means to do that much more efficiently. So that's from generating business requirements. So we've developed a tool in-house where it captures, PowerPoint presentations and transcripts from calls and Confluence pages and puts that all together. And it's got 4 agents that start talking to each other and piecing together business requirements in sort of a standard format. And what that's done is that's reduced the time it takes a business analyst from 8 days to 1 day to produce a detailed business requirement. Then obviously the software actually engineering side of it and testing, we're starting to experiment with that, which is really cool. So it's really throughout our business where we're focusing on a sort of domain-centric approach, working with really trusted partners in all those areas to really go deep. And then the next challenge after we've done that is how do we then start to stitch together across the business so that the agent who's working in network, self-optimizing the network or understanding customer experience can talk to the agent on the front line that's dealing with a customer, and actually that agent-to-agent interaction is sort of the next interesting wave that everyone's talking about and no one's really cracked yet.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fascinating. I'm really curious how how these things will evolve and how it all fits together. So at times we automate things and it's not necessarily AI to do it. I mean, how how clear are those lines? Have you got a bunch of things that are automated, but when you look at it, well, it's not really AI. It's kind of we've written some rules and other bits and pieces, and how much of it is really more AI. And
it's interesting because there's obviously a scale of it. So there's a basic automation that everyone's done for a long time. But then you do this, and then we've sort of got the generative AI co-pilots and tools that we're using, and then we've got the sort of agentic AI, which is the almost replacing process or human function with a LLM engine that can actually perform actions as well.
Yep.
And so we're doing things across that domain, and within Telco, you have to do a combination of all three.
Yep.
And on the agentic side, we've got, I think, as of last week, we've got about 9 or 10 agents actually in production performing real tasks in the business. They're not. There's a couple of customer interacting ones, which is more enterprise customers who can access information about their contract or cancel a mobile plan and things like that. So but it's not like our main call centre is not driven by AI agents yet. That's a bit of a leap into the future. But we've got a few external facing ones, mainly in the enterprise and business space, and then we've got a bunch of internal ones that are starting to do things internally, like the software development lifecycle one I mentioned. We've got a pipeline of dozens and dozens of these at the moment that are in various stages from concept through to actual testing at the moment, and we're just really trying to push the boundaries of what we can do and what we can get into production and experiment with in the business, all while we're arming our people with co-pilots and tools and ChatGPT Enterprise and Microsoft Copilot, and getting people to start to get used to using those large language models and everything they do as well. So it's exciting. We're trying to do a sort of multi-pronged approach, but we're going wide and going deep, and it's a lot of fun at the moment.
Yeah. And whose technology are you using to build these agents?
So there's a few. So we're using Salesforce Agentforce. So we're going quite deep in that, and that technology is rapidly evolving. We're currently migrating all our base into Salesforce at the moment. So as we get further and further into that, we'll get more use out of that. There's other vendors we're looking at, like ServiceNow, SAP, that are all doing agentic technology as well. Yeah. We're working with AWS, using Bedrock and agents on top of that, which is pretty exciting as well. And then sort of some of our big, radio and network vendors like the Nokias and the Ericssons and things like that are all starting to experiment with this technology too. So we're trying to pick in each of those different areas of the business who's the right partner to work with, and seeing what benefits we can get out of these tools. But we're very much out of the box. We don't want to. We're not in the business of developing models or anything like that. We want to take the capability that others provide and be able to rapidly scale that within our business.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of work going on in that area, so if you can lean into what others are doing, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I see that the government chief digital officer has appointed an AI expert advisory panel. This is sort of just new news. And so they've got this panel of 5 from kind of across varying parts of the the tech and business sector in New Zealand. How much difference is the government, starting to take AI increasingly seriously? How do you think that will play out? Is that pretty important for us as a country?
I was actually quite positively taken back by that, seeing that take place, because in my mind, the best thing the government could do right now is to almost replicate what Jason's done for government and go, we want to be the most AI first government in the world. It would be such an amazing productivity driver for the country, a training ground for people. Imagine if being a government worker was about being really tech savvy and AI first versus what it is, is now.
At times, yeah.
Yeah, and I would just love, Chris Luxon to stand up there and go, we're going to be the most AI first government. We're going to digitise all our major entities, put in some forward thinking CEOs and CTOs within those organisations, and just digitise the hell out of them. Work with partners to do that. Solve the identity challenge. So New Zealanders can have one identity across multiple government agencies and those things, and just focus on productivity. And they talk about productivity a lot, and I think this could be one way to really drive it home. Would be let's digitise the New Zealand government. But so I'm happy to see that. And I mean, the proof's in the pudding about how fast you can move, and everything's easier said than done in government, obviously. But I think it's a positive step. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I think it is. It's really important that we keep moving on these fronts. I think there's a balance in terms of what the regulatory frameworks are that support these things, and how we take advantage, but we don't kind of end up putting ourselves in a position where we end up kneecapping ourselves, later as governments change and so on. And you see. I guess some countries that end up with social scoring and surveillance systems and so on that rely on what generally looks like really ideal and brilliant technology, but then if you turn the knobs in differing directions, you potentially come up with some odd outcomes. So I think we've got to make sure we build in those checks and balances as well, right? Yeah.
But I was hearing the other day about a government entity which shall remain nameless, which was in the year 20 of their IT transformation. It doesn't sound like a transformation. It just sounds like a BAU. But, And I think getting some urgency and being really thoughtful around where you could push digitisation of government could have so many flow-on benefits, and it would start to also, I guess, drag through the infrastructure that's needed in New Zealand as well, and the right investment and networks and data centres and power and all that sort of stuff to support that as well.
Now, one of the areas that I think has really caught people's attention has been Starlink in recent years, both in terms of suddenly this sort of ubiquitous access to connectivity in places where you've never been able to get access before, in terms of a dedicated connection, but also that starting to come into the mobile world with sort of satellite to mobile. How's that journey going for 1NZ with Starlink, with SpaceX and Musk? I always find that whenever the Musk's name comes out, it seems to be quite polarizing. For a whole range of reasons, but not the least of what's been going on politically in recent times and so on. But the technology just seems astounding. But of course there are others who are trying to work in this space as well. What's your view on the sort of the progress and how quick that you expect it to to keep moving?
Yes, it's been a really exciting journey for us, being first in the world to deploy a new technology like direct to satellite texting. I think as an organisation, 1NZ has always sort of pride itself on its ability to innovate. We were first to 3G, first to 4G, first to 5G, and now in New Zealand, and now first in the world to launch the service. Solved a huge amount of technical challenges with the Starlink team in order to get this in place. We beat T-Mobile, much to their disgust, but but it was good. It's been really it's an amazing service and just an amazing sort of safety play as well. That's where we see it's 40% of New Zealand at the moment is not covered by terrestrial mobile coverage, and we're a nation of outdoors people and boaties, and so having a technology solution like this to cover those gaps and ensure people are safe is pretty cool. We've got it deployed now to hundreds of thousands of customers. There's tens of thousands of messages being sent on a daily basis now through the network, and we just see this as a nice complementary part of our integrated network that will continue into the future. So it's only texting at the moment, but we've just launched an IoT product at Field Days recently, and we're going to very soon we'll move to a data-based product as well, where you're able to use data on certain apps, which will also potentially allow voice over IP calling as well through the network. So we're really excited about it. We've just launched our network trial, which allows customers of other networks to put a second eSIM on their phone and try the SpaceX direct to satellite service. And we're seeing really good interest in uptake and both across enterprise and consumers, which is great.
Now, I saw the announcement around field days and using Starlink for IoT, Internet of Things type service. What does that actually look like? What is it that you're able to deliver at this point in time?
It just means we can deliver IoT in areas we couldn't before. So previously, where you need your terrestrial mobile connection to be able to talk to an IoT device, whether it's a sensor on a farm or any sort of typical IoT device, you can now do that in an area that doesn't have terrestrial coverage. So rather than talking to the cell tower, it's going to talk to the satellite, and it just comes back into our network. So it's just a more seamless way to grow your IoT base. There's a lot of rural and agricultural applications for IoT, and this just opens up more parts of the country to be able to deploy those solutions, more efficient agriculture and farming, and
And so this is a data type service that's sort of sporadically available when the
So IoT is typically pinging a bit of data periodically to some telemetry from some device or sensor, and so this just means you can do that in 40% of the country. You couldn't do it before, which is pretty cool, and a seamless approach where it's not two different networks. It's one set of devices talking to the same network, but just through different means. Signal coming through a satellite or through a mobile tower.
Yeah. And does that make a big cost difference to organisations that are using it compared to if they're in a normal cell coverage area? Because obviously it's got a cost to you to deliver that service that's different to where it's utilising your own towers.
Yeah, no, it's not a dramatic. Obviously, pricing's based on the application and the amount of data that's transferred. But for really data light applications, people aren't going to see a massive difference in pricing across that. So it's just an opportunity to open up IoT to just other areas of the country that haven't previously had it, which is pretty cool.
And where are you seeing the sort of immediate interest in terms of the specific use cases? Is there
farming sector? Yeah. I don't want to say too much about specific things because it will it'll reveal who those customers might be.
You don't want to reveal. Yeah,
but there's a lot of farming and agricultural applications for it, which are pretty cool.
Yeah, and I guess that's an area where the agri-tech world where New Zealand obviously has some good capabilities, and we want to continue to be winning on the global stage on that front. So it's nice to be able to
export
tap
sector for us. So how do we be more productive and farm more efficiently? And this is something that helps that.
No, that's good. And I guess in terms of getting to a point where people could have continuous connectivity for whether it's audio calls or web browsing or social media and so on. I saw something in quite recently was suggesting maybe T-Mobile in the States would have that more kind of expanded capability maybe as soon as sort of October this year type of time frame. Are you very much reliant on the same things they are? It comes down to the number of satellites that SpaceX have put up, so that you've got the gaps kind of filled in, so you move to a continuous coverage type of approach.
Yeah, there's probably a couple of constraints, and they're similar across the board. And one is obviously the technology on the satellites being ready to achieve that, and the other one is the device manufacturers and the firmware as well being able to support new products. So essentially, Apple and Samsung doing what they need to do at their end to allow apps to work from a perspective or IP calling and things like that. So we're working on the same things that T-Mobile's working on, and it'll be relatively similar timeframes.
But those get solved probably a lot quicker, knowing that they're trying to get US coverage, not just trying to focus on New Zealand.
And it's good. We do a lot of experience sharing with the other. So Telstra's launched now, KDDI, T-Mobile. There's a lot of experience sharing between those technical teams to solve some of these problems with the Starlink team as well. So.
And there was talk of some sort of roaming capability, for those that maybe have one NZ service here. Yep. If you go to Australia or US and so on, is that something that's where's that at the moment?
I think it's the intention from Starlink to enable that at some point. It's not working at the moment, and it hasn't been enabled. But that's certainly an intention is to be able to do that, which would be great for consumers.
Yeah. So when would you pick that? We might be able to make phone calls, or at least have reasonably continuous kind of data service in New Zealand. Do you think that T-Mobile date was maybe a little optimistic, or? Oh yeah,
I think I'd be optimistic by the end of the year. We'd be able to support certain data applications and IP calling, WhatsApp calling, Facebook calling, things like that over the satellites.
Yeah, yeah. And are there more sort of complexities to, I guess, traditional mobile calling in terms of the technicalities versus, say, a WhatsApp or a messenger type call? How different are those from a perspective of being able to make them work seamlessly?
Yeah, it is just different technology, and even like handing over between the satellite network and the terrestrial networks. There's some challenges in there to be worked through. You need ubiquitous coverage really to make that a seamless thing, so you can't have gaps between the satellites. So yeah, there's a few things to work through on the voice side, but I have no doubt they'll be solved very quickly, the rate that the stuff's changing, and very soon customers will be able to make voice calls over satellite from those areas.
Yeah, amazing. Now tell us about the Doppler effect. Some of our listeners won't have heard of this, but we were chatting about it before we started. So what is the Doppler effect?
So it blows my mind that a satellite travelling at 27,000 kilometres an hour, 250 kilometres above your head, is talking to a standard mobile handset through our normal spectrum. And one of the big engineering challenges that SpaceX needed to solve was the Doppler effect, where the typical way they teach this in school is when the police car is coming down the road at you and you hear a certain frequency. As soon as it's past you, it's a different frequency, because the frequency of that sound waves change depending whether it's coming towards you or moving away. So it shifts as there's a relative movement between the thing that's making the noise and the thing that's taking the noise. Same problem with radio waves with those satellites. They traverse across the horizon. So where you can see the horizon to the other side in probably less than 2 minutes. So coming at an incredible rate relative to where you are. And so the radio signal, if they were just pushing out a 1800 megahertz radio signal, then that's going to change depending whether it's coming towards you or moving away from you. And they've managed to somehow solve that engineering challenge. So from the perspective of the ground, you're receiving on that same frequency no matter where that satellite is. So that's it's pretty amazing that they've solved a challenge like that, because that's probably one of the biggest barriers to getting this technology working.
Yep. Oh, well, we're glad that they've been working away and solving these challenges in the background. And talk to us a little bit about the ongoing expansion of 5G, what's happening with the sunsetting of 3G, how that looks, because I think every year you kind of we hear something around, there was this many million put into mobile network for one telco or another. I think sort of $100 million type figures on a annual basis.
It's a lot of money.
is a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of money, but this kind of seems to be the ongoing part of the puzzle. So what does that look like for 1NZ?
So I feel a bit as an industry we don't get the credit we deserve for the sheer amount of increase in capacity and data we give people every year for the same prices. Our prices certainly don't increase at the rate consumption increases. So we, as technology's evolved over the past 30 years since mobile networks have been around, people's use of data is just absolutely transformed today, where we're streaming high definition 4K video on a mobile device, and it just works. So we invest a lot every year to keep up with that changing technology and changing demand. We used to see mobile growth increasing at probably 60% a year in terms of data used. It's starting to ramp off now. You can see in more advanced economies it's getting down to the 20% or lower, and really that's just about, we get saturation when video, you can't really consume more data than video, because what's it gonna be, and but we're still obviously every year keeping up with that capacity growth and making sure our network evolves to deliver that. We're also rolling out 5G, which brings a whole lot of new capabilities into mobile, and really that's about preparing us for this AI revolution. The capabilities that you get through modern 5G standalone networks
Yep.
are going to support all these sort of new use cases around autonomous vehicles and drones and 360-degree cameras and quality of service slices and all these things that are going to require a new way of thinking about connectivity. So we're preparing ourselves for that at the moment and spending a huge amount of money getting that 5G network ready for this wave, which will happen in the next few years. Another important part of that is the shutdown of the 3G network, and we're not doing that to upset people or to cause problems. But we need that spectrum back. We need that spectrum because it's got hardly anyone on it now, and we need to get it back so we can put it on 5G, so we can make the most of the new 5G capabilities. And as we've signalled to New Zealand that we're planning on shutting down our 3G network at the end of this year, and we're currently doing a lot of work in the background to get ready to do that and make sure customers, devices who aren't 4G capable are migrated in time, and coverage holes are closed, and all those sort of things that we need to do that. Luckily, other countries have gone through this journey already, like Australia's gone through it, went through a bit of pain, have a lot of learnings from it. We talk to those telcos often and have captured the learnings from those situations. So we're hoping we can make it quite a seamless experience, but just a really important thing to do from a efficiency, security, and spectrum reuse plan. So we need to push through that as an industry. And
how far through you sort of growing your 5G coverage are you? You know, what percentage of your your coverage is at 5G now? Yeah,
so we're in the 60s now, and part of that 3G switch off will allow us to sort of rapidly increase that as we free up some more spectrum that allows us to sort of propagate that signal a bit further. So we're still rolling out pretty fast, and we'll have, in the next couple of years, the majority of people in the country covered by really good 5G signal with new set of advanced capabilities that are going to allow us to make the most of all these new AI and innovative things that are coming.
Now, for folks that maybe they're stuck in a location where all they get is 3G coverage right now, what's that transition going to look like for them? And is everywhere that's got 3G today going to be covered?
Technically now we have no sites in our network that are 3G only. So everywhere there is 3G, there should also be what's called a low band 4G signal to cover that entire area. We need to continue to optimise the network and make sure that the propagation of the 4G signal matches the 3G. One of the biggest problems they had in Australia was as the load on the 3G network reduced as they migrated people from the devices, the range of the 3G signal propagated further and actually went beyond their maps that they had on their websites.
I experienced some sort of iteration of that when I was first trying to test the Starlink coverage and didn't want to go for a 2-hour drive in order to do so. I'd be like,
going,
the map says I'm out of coverage here, and it's like, I'm still getting your 3G or some sort of signal there.
So 3G has this great property that when it's underloaded, it actually, or it's the opposite, when it's more loaded, it shrinks.
Yeah, okay.
And so we set up our maps around that. And the mistake Australian radio teams made is they designed their 4G signal around their 3G maps. And so they had all these bits on the edges where there was 3G signal, which they didn't even know existed, that people relied on, and they turned it off all at once. They turned the whole network off in one day, and everyone went, whoa. There's a problem here. And it's great to capture that learning now without us doing it, because we can be much more thoughtful around ensuring that 4G coverage propagates a bit further, ensuring that we shut down the network in a measured way. And so we don't flick everything off at once and go, let's see what happens. It's a much more thoughtful approach, and if there are gaps, we can fix them and optimise them on the time and then move on to the next area.
So I was in part of Blockhouse Bay recently, and sort of down at sort of sea level, I guess, and in a particular area where you wouldn't get too much access to different sites unless there was one, I guess, reasonably nearby. I'm picking from the way the bays are and so on, but I only saw 3G, so that'll be one, I guess. It'll be on your radar, and
it will be as well. There's rules built in which said if the 3G signal is is this sort of strength relative to the 4G signal. You might still get 3G, but when that 3G signal goes, you'll still get 4G as well. So there's some nuances to it. It doesn't mean just because there's 3G there that you won't get 4G when it turns it off. So this is what we're working through, and we're really committed to make this work well, because we know it's a painful transition. And so unfortunately, things like at the moment, certain retailers still parallel importing 3G only phones and selling them, and it's just
who
not
would do
helpful.
that?
I won't name any names. In
No,
the room,
I did see. There's been some media coverage around that sort of parallel importing of devices, and then I guess that creates a situation where either the retailer under sort of Consumer Guarantees Act is needing to make good and potentially provide a different device, or they've got to work in behind the scenes and try and get some firmware updates and or work with yourselves and maybe spark in 2 degrees to try and get some of these devices to
so the devices themselves will never be compatible.
Work.
They actually need
really?
to get rid of them. And the other problem, which is a bit more concerning, is 4G compatible and even VoLTE calling compatible 4G devices. Some of them won't make emergency calls on the other networks. So, you can make an emergency call on the Spark network or the 2 degrees network when you're out of 1NZ coverage. Some of these imported phones, even though they're VoLTE calling or 4G calling compatible, won't make emergency calls. And so we know them, we know what the devices are, and it's really important that people text it's 550, text 3G to 550 to understand whether their device is compatible or not, and they'll get feedback back. We contact people continuously about this. We send them text messages warning them about it, and we need to make sure we follow through and get those devices out of the network.
Right, okay. Yeah, because I was reading around a situation where I think it was PB Tech had, they imported a range of devices that obviously probably hadn't come through the carrier type of channel. And their suggestion was, hey, we'll get a software update. We're going to work with telcos, and this should all be solved by the end of the period. But your feeling is if they're not working now, they're probably not going to be able to
they need to be compatible with spectrum bands that are on.
Okay, so they might not actually support the right
regardless of what
bands.
software goes on there, it doesn't mean they're going to work on 4G.
Okay. So it might not be as easy as what's been suggested.
And there is a whole lot of IoT devices out there as well, which are on 3G as well, which need to be migrated to.
And are you seeing that the message is kind of getting through? I remember there was alarm system that we need to get put in, and the provider was saying, this comes with a GPRS option. Now this is going back a little while, or he just said a cellular connection, right? and then I asked a few more questions, and it's like 2G. This could be a problem. And so I guess in these sort of different fields where these technologies are used, the word gets around reasonably quickly, and folks get in and offer upgrades. But there will be cases where people probably have to rip out some technology, more than just replacing out a board. You've got to actually get rid of a whole system because it's just archaic and can't be upgraded, right?
And what they saw in Australia was actually, no one moved, and they sent the messages and sent them, and it was that they're expecting this nice linear line of people migrating up to there, and it was a hockey stick. So at the end, when people have to, they do it, and it gave me a bit more confidence, because I think I was more worried about that device migration than the coverage aspect, whereas their lived experience was the coverage aspect was the pain point, and the device migration was actually okay. But we're here to work with all our customers to get whoever needs to get across to a device. So I just encourage people as much as they can to make the move early, to make it less painful, and because it's ultimately going to get a better result if we can build a high quality 5G network for the country. But this is a painful process we need to go through.
How long would you anticipate we need to have? Because we were used to always having I guess 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G came along. We're down to 3. We'll be down to having 2 with just 4G and 5G. Do you foresee that in the kind of the 6G timeframe, which I'm picking as roughly sort of 2030,
2030,
that 4G would be coming up and getting switched off earlier, or are we probably a decade out for of life left in 4G at this stage?
I can't imagine 4G will be shut off until the mid 2030s. I wouldn't have thought. It's a great technology that still, from a bandwidth perspective, can deliver majority of consumer grade use cases, and I think we'll find it's around for a long time.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. And towers. Where have the towers gone?
They're still there. We just don't own them anymore.
It seems like they're off your books now.
Yeah. So it's been 3 years ago.
Yeah.
There was a wave of tower sales amongst the industry, Spark, 2 Degrees, and us as well. Two telcos that are there now, Connexa and 40 South. So it's part of a trend that's happened globally around infrastructure monetization, and I think it's really about a reflection that telcos are sort of this collection of these sort of different asset classes that have different risk profiles and different return profiles, combined with a retail business, and stores and all these sort of things. And it's sort of this mix of businesses. And if you can split that up and invest in these things in an appropriate way, you can actually get a lot of value out of them. And we've seen some amazing things since we've sold the towers to 40 South that they're doing in there, and the way they're thinking about it and optimising that business, and lobbying for higher height towers so we can have more efficient coverage, thinking about how you can stack multiple sets of antennas on light poles, how you can simplify the engineering, how we can drive efficiency through digital twins and drone surveys of sites rather than sending people out. All this sort of stuff is, when you've got a set of people dedicated on a set of assets, they tend to optimise that. Where when it was in-house with us, it's just one of the things we have to deal with, and it's a bit of an afterthought. And the process around negotiating with landlords on leases and having a proper team around that who thinks about that and optimises that. There's a lot of value to be driven by carving up those assets into entities that can focus on them. And we've done the same with our fibre now. We recently launched Eon Fibre, which is a separate standalone dedicated fibre optic business, which reflects the fact that fiber's cool again now with the AI revolution, and we need a whole lot more of it, and the data centre growth. And we want an organisation that's has a level of independence that it can work with everyone, and we're the second largest fibre owner in the country after Chorus. So just another move to create a structure that really optimises the value of those assets.
Yeah, that's great. Just trying to think what else. There's a lot of things we could tap into. Anything else that's on your mind, Kieran, that we haven't dived into you think might be of interest to listeners?
No, I think it's just a fascinating time in the industry. I think this sort of intersection of wireless connectivity, move to the cloud, and AI just makes telco a really interesting place to be at the moment. And we've delivered the same service. We put everyone through the same pipe for the past 30 years, and now we're moving to a world where we need all these different applications to support all these new services and ideas and businesses that are popping up, and it's going to be a really interesting transformational time. And it's a lot of fun at the moment, and there's a lot coming in. Really interesting.
One thing that it's kind of kept coming up over time is, well, isn't there a time we won't need cell towers anymore because look, there's ubiquitous sort of satellite coverage. My thinking when I've had that question is, well, there's only kind of so far that satellite connectivity can penetrate. So that to me doesn't seem like something. I don't know if that would ever be viable. What are your thoughts on can there be a point where Starlink are their own mobile carrier and they're competing with everyone else and there's no they don't have any local towers? Is that type of thing a possibility in some form?
I mean, I couldn't sit here and say it's not a possibility at some point in the future. The physical distance provides engineering challenges, and there's definitely physics limitations of delivering that sort of stuff from space, and latency as well. I mean, latency is going to become a huge thing in a new AI world, and so the physical distance that something has to propagate through there is going to add latency to connections. The bandwidth associated with being 250 kilometres away at the moment is it's not even in the near ballpark. So I definitely see it. If I take a 10 to 20 year view, it's a complementary technology. It's going to augment our network. It's going to be for certain use cases. You're not going to necessarily be, streaming 4K video in the middle of the bush anytime soon. But you'll be able to make a voice call. You'll be able to text. You'll be able to check your email. You'll be able to maybe watch a low definition Netflix. But yeah, it's hard to foresee in the near future it could be a replacement for terrestrial networks, just the sheer capacity and bandwidth that we need to run the modern technology.
We're used to streaming video and being able to move things around pretty swiftly, right? And that's going to be dramatically limited in terms of what we get on a mobile device over a Starlink type of connection.
And there's some other interesting things to think about, because that would be giving your network infrastructure to another country, essentially. Like, there's no way you could ever create a case to create a New Zealand LEO network where these satellites fly around the world in 90 minutes, and then 2 minutes of that they're over New Zealand,
right? Yeah.
So you're inherently relying on a global party for the scale needed to do that in an efficient way. And would we really hand over all our communications to another country rather than having terrestrial? And so there's certain barriers to it. I think I'm not going to sit here and naively say there's never going to be a technology that allows us to do that. But in my window, and if I'm talking sort of 10 or 20 years, I think it's a fantastic complementary technology, but certainly not a disruptor in the sense it could completely disintermediate a terrestrial telco.
Yeah, and particularly in a country like New Zealand, where the towers and the infrastructure and so on is already out there. I guess if you were, pick somewhere in the world that has, no mobile networks yet, and I don't think there probably are any, but there will be regions where there's very limited, and there would be some scenarios like that where I can imagine you could come up with a particular use case as the technology develops. But probably 99% of cases, things will kind of continue.
It's going to be fantastic for consumers. At some point in the future, we're going to have all telco networks will have a satellite partner, and connectivity will be ubiquitous no matter where you are. And that's obviously a massive leap.
And for those that are sort of curious, the difference between the LEO low Earth orbit satellites and then the geostationary satellites. The geostationary satellites are a lot further out, aren't they?
36,000 kilometres, I think.
Yeah, so that totally kind of changes the realities of what's actually possible and what's doable. Yeah, and the LEO satellites are moving around. So you've got
so that physical distance makes quite a big makes a big difference in that. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Oh, well, thank you very much, Kieran. Real privilege to have you on the New Zealand Tech Podcast. And, we'll certainly look forward to next time. Big thank you, of course, to 1NZ, Spark, 2 Degrees, Workday, HP and Gorilla Technology for their support of the New Zealand Tech Podcast. And thank you for listening in. We will be back again next week with another episode. And, of course, if you're listening to this on your favourite podcast app, do make sure you're following us across your video and social media apps so you can get access to the video that we often share as well. That's us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul.
All right. Cheers, Kieran.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.